Clicker. I like that. Feels fancy. How are we doing today? Pretty good. I'm excited to be here. Last time I was in New Mexico, I also was talking about gender, and I'd like to come here sometime to see it just as a location, but very blessed to be here to talk about some of my experiences today. So a little bit about me. My name is Soren Aldaco. I am an ambassador for independent women, a graduate student at the University of Texas at Austin. Thank you. An independent consultant and subject matter expert. I'm also a public survivor of gender medicine and a plaintiff in one of the first U.S. lawsuits against gender medicine practitioners. Equally important to my life is I volunteer with disabled cats and I play sandlot baseball, right? Have to sneak that in there. Makes me very, very happy. I'm here today to first ask you guys, how many of you have used TikTok? Just a show of hands. How many of you have had a loved one who has used TikTok? Right? And how many of us have been concerned about TikTok? See, that's more like it. Well, as of April 2024, TikTok has 1.69 billion monthly active users. That's monthly active users, people who use the platform monthly, not even total accounts or people who use it on a more sparse basis. The average user of TikTok spends 5.26 seconds on average per video. This equates to about 11 videos per minute, and given that the average user also spends 76 minutes on TikTok per day, you could theoretically watch 867 videos in that span of just over an hour. And I think what's important to remember here is, given the 1.69 billion monthly active users, you're not just exposing yourself to 867 videos, but 867 unique people, more than likely. So to understand this, we got to zoom out a little bit. During the course of preparing this speech and writing my thesis, which is very related to my speech today, I originally intended to focus more on the transgender identities parts of things. But as I started to dig a little bit deeper, actually reading Dr. Lippman's research, I realized that people very much misunderstand what is going on with transgender identity. It makes it hard for those of us who are speaking out about the patterns we're seeing to be taken seriously and to not be attacked. And so what I chose to do was to zoom out even further and to talk about human development on a broader scale. That's where I came up with Scroll, Click, Become: Why Social Media Deserves Psychosocial Scrutiny. I argue this point, why social media deserves our scrutiny, through three claims. The first is that identity formation is social. The second is that the internet is changing what it means to be social. And the third is that a synthesis of these two tells us the internet is changing identity formation then. This brings me to my first claim, right? Identity formation is social. So there's a couple important figures to cover here. The first is George Herbert Mead. He was a social scientist at the turn of the 20th century. He believed very firmly that social interactions and role play were essential to our development of self. It starts out with wanting to be like mom or dad, why young people like Jazz Jennings perhaps dress up in mom's clothes, right? We look up to our close and near loved ones. But over time, we learn to take the role of other in games, right? Through playing cops and robbers, we learn what it's like to be mischievous or to do good and instill justice into the world. And then later on, we develop what is called the generalized other, where it's not just mom or dad or the people we're playing baseball with. It is all of society we're trying to picture, what this general expectation is that we're supposed to conform to and meet. And another researcher, a contemporary of Mead, Charles Horton Cooley, believed that not only do we have this generalized other, but we're actively using this generalized other to understand ourselves in real time through the looking glass self. Who are we through the eyes of the people around us? And sometimes that's not specific people like mom or dad or the pitcher when I'm catching. It is people on the internet. It is some nebulous society that expects something from us. I'm sure you guys have heard that one before. There's another gentleman, Erikson, who came a little bit later, and he believed that we developed our identity through a series of conflicts that were age-graded and built off of one another. The earliest of these was trust versus mistrust, where when we cry, we learn whether or not our parents and caregivers respond to us. The next is autonomy versus shame and doubt, where, for example, we learn how to use the toilet and we feel emboldened, and maybe that's the biggest thing in our life at the time. It's not mine anymore, but the commonality between these two is that they're embodied, right? They involve embodied experience, feeding, toileting. As adolescents, here in the blue, we have the conflict of identity versus role confusion, where we're figuring out who we are and where we're supposed to fit in this world through the lens of the generalized other, or using the looking glass self. This is also embodied as we're experiencing puberty, right? Let's turn now to James Marcia. He is still alive today. In his late 80s, but he built off of Erikson's theory of identity crisis and identity versus role confusion by presenting a framework that said we balance crisis or exploration with commitment when developing our identity. When we have low commitment or low exploration, it's like what Dr. Haltigan talked about. We're diffuse. Our identities are extreme and rapidly cycling. When we commit very early on, but don't do much exploration, like in the case of child stars, we end up foreclosed. And eventually, when we grow out of that role, we might not even know who we are. But the healthy take is generally considered to be moratorium, where we do high exploration. We go through a lot of different identities, but we weigh them critically. We figure out what we like about being a cop in the cops and robbers game, or being the robber instead. And eventually this leads to identity achievement, where we decide what we do like, what hats we like to wear, metaphorically speaking, or maybe literally, and come to a sense of self that Erikson said, healthily speaking, involved a integration of the disparate parts of ourselves into a stable, coherent whole. That role and that whole didn't have to be consistent across settings, but general constancy across time and context was important. This led to a sense of self that was internally anchored, but outwardly adaptable. This leads me to my second claim. The internet is changing what it means to be social. This is a little bit more of a history lesson. The internet started with ARPANET in the 60s and 70s. It was a government project that connected government officials and academics all across the world. Soon after, in the late 90s and early 2000s, we had chat rooms. These were places that you would go to talk. I'm sure many of you guys remember chat rooms. My parents met on AOL. And what these two things, ARPANET and chat rooms, have in common is they were extensions of the real world. They were tools that we used to deepen and add nuance to our already existing connections. And they were also limited in discoverability. You couldn't meet someone necessarily from across the world. It was sometimes people in your locality who had the same interests as you. And when you logged off, you went away, right? This brings us to social media. Social media is a completely different beast. Quick question, how many of you guys remember the computer room, right? It was a place you went and you sat down and you used the computer, and when you logged off and you walked away, the computer did not follow you. However, by 1999, the internet was no longer just a place you would go. People were starting to envision it as something that was everywhere. They called it the Internet of Things. Everything they envisioned would be connected. Our smartphones, our fridges, our cars, our watches, and even our home security cameras. Now, what makes social media so different is that it's driven by an algorithm. Algorithms are the brains of social media. They determine what you see and when. Some of the original algorithms, or the ways that social media presented information to you, as some of y'all might remember, was chronologically. When we used Instagram, we saw what the people we followed posted in the order that it was posted in, right? So we could kind of keep up with real life in the way we would in real life. But over time, algorithms became based on all kinds of information that the public doesn't have access to. Now we understand that generally algorithms exploit social learning biases using prime information. Prime information is how we determine in a world full of so much information what to pay attention to. It's why you might be looking at my screen instead of the blank tablecloth in front of you. I have bright colors, right? And prime stands for prestigious, in-group, moral, and emotional information, things that get you in your feels. This creates a feedback loop where social media exploits our social learning biases to get you to stay on the platform. They reward you with content that it believes will be engaging, and you reward it with your attention by engaging with that content. The person who I heard this from might be here today, and I apologize for not crediting you if so, have said that it keeps you in a cycle of laugh, cry, seethe, and repeat, where you're constantly feeling strong emotions, and we're not really designed for that, right? We need rest, we need peace, we need times where our brains connect all the dots, like shower thoughts are a thing, default mode network, where you're processing all the information you've learned in a day. That's what it's what dreams are for, right? And so this brings me to my third claim, the synthesis of the first two, that the internet is changing identity formation on a fundamental level. First, there is this concept called Dunbar's number. The idea of Dunbar's number is that, and if you think back to our calculation earlier, this is important, we have a limited capacity for the people we can know and understand. We typically, and it's estimated to have 15 close friends, 50 regular friends, 150 meaningful contacts, 500 acquaintances, and maybe 1,500 recognizable faces. This is different for every person, right? We have our individual differences, but the point is that we aren't meant for infinite access. We aren't meant to be exposed to, 1.5+ billion people on TikTok, and that's not even people, those are fragments of people. Those are 5.26 second long fragments of people on average. And these are people that are from diverse, sometimes unknowable cultural and geopolitical backgrounds. They're not our near reference points of our mom and our dad or our friends and family. And so this leads you to question, if we become ourselves through interactions with others, what kind of others are we dealing with today? Who are we looking at through the looking glass? It could be anybody. These could be filtered, curated, or altered for the screen, either through plastic surgery or through filters, right? Which take very, very, very little effort to apply. And I think the best takeaway here is that identity formation this way is not embodied, like Erikson said we needed. The role play didn't end. We don't integrate the experiences and feelings we're having into feeling ourselves. Instead, we curate ourselves. We create personal brands that are marketable, and we turn ourselves into, through the use of the algorithm, palatable fragments, hashtags, a 200-word bio. As personal brands, this leads us to perform as both product and consumer. And we often measure ourselves not through the looking glass by anticipating others' reactions or interpreting them even, but through metrics, a two-dimensional process that exploits our three-dimensional desire to connect. Now, Lauren Greenfield, a documentarian and anthropologist, said it best: we're no longer keeping up with the Joneses. We're keeping up with the Kardashians. And in case you don't know that reference, let me spell it out for you. Our reference points used to be near and significant. I've said this several times because it is so important. They were our friends, our families, our aunts, our uncles, our siblings, our children even, because we develop throughout the lifespan, Erikson said. No longer are the reference points near and significant, they are far and scattered. They're flattened, they're curated. They are people we will never meet, people who can never strive to be. The Joneses was an ideal that with enough hard work and time, we could be that thing. The Kardashians, we will not be the Kardashians. We will not have that way of living. And so healthy identity is committed, integrated, and embodied, whereas internet identity is diffuse, fragmented, and disembodied instead. To recap, claim 1 was that identity formation is social. Claim 2 is that the internet is changing social. And claim 3 is that the internet is changing identity formation on a fundamental level. This leads me to my current research interests. In this digital age where we're not developing a sense of self through embodied experience, how can we teach, learn, and integrate information about the sexes, an experience that is physical, one of the most physical, fundamental parts of ourselves? How can we learn about that if we're not spending time doing the things we need to do to understand that beyond maybe stereotypes, right, which are two-dimensional? We know that to be true. I'm also interested in how we can make this process better and improve the way we teach, learn, and integrate information about the sexes. In particular, I'm interested in interventions for cognitive dissonance and how we can help people resolve that incongruence between their internal identity and the expectations of the external world around their own or the opposite sex too. Now, I'll leave it here as we're nearing time, and I just want to get a sense of what we're feeling in the room right now. I'm going to ask us to go around, and if you'll share a word or a phrase, keep it short, please. I want as many people as possible to engage of what you're what connections you're seeing and what you're concerned about with how the internet and internet-mediated identity might be mattering to the transgender phenomenon. So. I heard narcissism, emotional manipulation,
endless options,
synthetic identity.
I kind of like this this calling it out. If you guys want to try that, is that going to be picked up at all? Not for the live stream. Okay, well, just so you all know, it was here. We were having an embodied interaction. It was not curated or filtered. How does that feel, y'all, right? Repeat it? Okay. Gaming, okay. See, I would love to repeat it, but I can't hear two things at once. That's the hard part, right? Could I take the microphone and walk it myself? Is that all right? Theatrical. Anyone else over here?
Envy.
Okay, envy. I heard siloing over here from this gentleman.
Dissolution of the family.
Okay.
manipulation.
Sorry.
Role models.
Inauthentic authenticity.
Fragments of people creating fragmented people.
Destabilizing.
I like this.
Dissociation.
Cluster B.
A siloed echo chamber.
Information is not knowledge.
That is true. Knowledge is a process.
Avoiding risk.
Shallow.
Okay.
Loss of empathy.
Loss of empathy. We're going to get some from this side of the room. Oh, Maya's really excited.
Identity formation as a thought experiment.
Enablers.
Okay. I see a gentleman in a hat. I'm going to make a pit stop real quick.
Creating tics.
That's fair.
Inferiority complex.
That's a nice one.
Addiction.
Do we have anyone that's really dying to give one? I see a hand over here. I'm going to walk back this way, and then we're going to wrap it up. I know, I got my speed walking down, right? You got to put your hips and your arms into it.
Loneliness.
Okay, so what I'm hearing right now is what I think other speakers today have spoken about, is that we're feeling disconnected, right? Which seems ironic because the truth is internet posits itself as the place of connection, as giving you niches, as giving you that community that we evolved to have and we think we have through social media. But as I said in my talk today, online, it's not what we need. It's not physical. It's not integrated. It's not constant on the inside when the algorithm is driving it from the outside. And I want to thank you all for your engagement today. I want to thank you all for being present. I am a consultant, like I said, and a researcher. You can scan this QR code to go to my website. I'm happy to meet with any of you guys here today, or if you'd prefer some one-on-one time, you can schedule that with me there. But thank you so much, and thank you for being here.